The river swallows her whole. A student's final days in the Amazon. Before we begin, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. What you are about to hear is a true story, meticulously reconstructed from recovered journal entries, guide testimonies, and satellite data. Today, we follow the journey of a young American university student whose quest for academic validation led her into the green hell of the Amazon. From confident field notes to desperate, fever-driven ramblings. This is the story of how a single moment of poor judgment can strip away everything. Turn on notifications so you never miss our investigations. This is a tale of ambition, isolation, and the unforgiving truth of nature. The Amazon does not welcome you, tolerates you briefly until it decides otherwise. On March 12, 2024, Chloe Vance stepped off the riverboat onto the muddy bank of a remote tributary in the Peruvian Amazon, her boots sinking slightly into the damp earth. At 21 years old, she was a junior environmental science student at the University of Washington, carrying a backpack heavy with field equipment, a waterproof journal, and a satellite phone her parents had insisted she bring. Her hair was tied back in a practical braid, her face already glistening with sweat despite the early morning coolness. She smiled at the camera mounted on her chest, adjusting the strap with practiced ease. "Day 1 of the Amazon Basin Field Study," she whispered, her voice bright with excitement. "I'm finally here. Thesis data, biodiversity documentation, and honestly, just proving to myself I can do this. Wish me luck." Behind her stood Mateo Rios, a seasoned Peruvian guide with 15 years of experience navigating the rainforest. He was a quiet man with calloused hands and eyes that constantly scanned the canopy, the riverbank, the shadows between the trees. He had warned Chloe repeatedly during their briefing in Iquitos. "Stay on the trail. Do not wander. The jungle does not forgive mistakes. The river hides more than it shows. Your phone will not save you here." Chloe had nodded, smiled, and packed her gear. She believed in preparation. She believed in science. She believed that respect and caution would be enough. For the first 3 days, everything went according to plan. They followed established research routes, documenting insect species, collecting water samples, photographing medicinal plants. Chloe was diligent, taking notes, asking questions, respecting Mateo's pace. But beneath the academic focus lay something else, a restless ambition. She wanted more than data. She wanted a story. She wanted proof that she could survive where most would fail. Her Instagram drafts were filling with behind-the-scenes clips, time-lapse of sunsets over the canopy, and captions about pushing boundaries. She wasn't just a student anymore. She was becoming a narrative. On the 4th morning, they set out early to reach a remote monitoring station near a bend in the river. The humidity was oppressive, the air thick with the scent of decaying vegetation and damp soil. Cicadas screamed in the trees. Howler monkeys echoed in the distance. Every step felt heavier than the last. Chloe's shoulders ached from her pack. Her water bladder was running low. The trail narrowed, winding through dense undergrowth where vines hung like curtains and roots twisted across the path like sleeping serpents. Around 10:45 a.m., Chloe stopped, shifting her weight from one foot to the other. "Mateo," she said, breathless, "I need to step off the trail for a minute. Just nature calls." Mateo paused, his expression tightening. "Chloe, we are far from camp. The trail is marked. If you leave it, even for a moment, you will lose the path. The jungle looks the same in every direction. Wait until we reach the next clearing." "It'll be 2 minutes," she insisted, already unclipping her waist strap. "I'll stay within sight. I promise." Mateo studied her for a long moment. He had seen this before, the confidence of youth, the illusion of control. He nodded reluctantly. "Stay where you can see my shirt. Do not go deeper. Call out if you lose sight of me." Chloe stepped off the trail, pushing through a curtain of broad leaves. She found a small hollow behind a cluster of ferns, relieved herself quickly, and turned back. But the foliage had shifted. The light had changed. The path she had just left was gone, swallowed by identical green walls. She took a few steps forward, then sideways, trying to reorient herself. The trail markers, orange ribbons tied to trees, were nowhere to be seen. "Mateo?" she called out. Her voice sounded small, absorbed instantly by the dense canopy. Silence. Then a rustle, a bird's call, the distant hum of insects. She walked faster, pushing through vines, stepping over roots, her breath quickening. "Mateo? I'm coming back." Nothing. Panic, cold and sharp, pricked at her chest. She spun in a circle. Every direction looked the same. The trees, the ferns, the damp earth. It was a mirror maze of green. She pulled out her phone. No signal. The GPS showed a blue dot spinning uselessly. She tried to retrace her steps, but the ground was uneven, the foliage dense, and her own footprints were already fading in the soft soil. She ran. Not a careful jog. A full, desperate sprint through the undergrowth, branches whipping her arms, leaves slapping her face, her pack bouncing heavily against her back. She didn't look where she was going. She just needed to find the trail, to hear Mateo's voice, to see that orange ribbon. The ground sloped downward. The air grew heavier, wetter. The sound of rushing water grew louder, cutting through the jungle's chorus. She pushed through a final wall of vines and stumbled onto a narrow ledge overlooking a wide, churning river. The water was the color of strong tea, swirling with sediment, moving with a silent, relentless power. The opposite bank was lost in mist and shadow. She gasped for air, hands on her knees, heart hammering against her ribs. She had gone too far. She was alone. Then the ground beneath her feet gave way. It wasn't dramatic, just a soft, wet collapse of eroded soil. Her right foot slipped. Her arms flailed. She tried to grab a root, but it tore free. For a split second, she was suspended in air, eyes wide, breath trapped in her throat. Then gravity took her. She fell 12 feet, hitting the water with a heavy slap that knocked the wind from her lungs. The cold was shocking. The current grabbed her instantly, dragging her downstream, spinning her, submerging her, pulling her under. She kicked, flailed, broke the surface, gasped, swallowed water, coughed, fought, and then she felt it. Not one bite, dozens. Sharp, tearing, rhythmic, like tiny razors shredding her skin. She screamed underwater, bubbles escaping her lips. Her arms thrashed, her legs kicked. Something brushed her thigh, her calf, her back. She felt fabric tear. She felt pain, bright and sudden. Across her shoulders, her arms, her legs. She wasn't fighting an animal. She was fighting the water itself. The river was alive and it was hungry. She kicked harder, using every ounce of strength, dragging herself toward the muddy bank. Her fingers found a protruding root. She grabbed it, hauled herself up, collapsed onto the soft earth, coughing, vomiting river water, shaking uncontrollably. She was alive, but she was ruined. Her shirt was torn in 3 places. Her shorts were shredded. Her backpack was gone, swallowed by the current. Her phone, her satellite communicator, her first aid kit, her water, her food, all gone. She was lying on the riverbank in wet, torn clothes, shivering despite the heat, bleeding from dozens of small, angry wounds, utterly alone. And the jungle was watching. The first hour was pure survival instinct. Chloe dragged herself away from the water's edge, finding a small rise in the ground where the soil was slightly drier. She sat with her back against a tree, breathing in ragged gasps, staring at her arms. The bites were everywhere. Red, swollen, oozing slightly. They looked like insect stings, but deeper, more irritated. Some had already begun to bruise. She pressed her fingers against them, wincing. Her skin felt hot, too hot. She needed to stop the bleeding, clean the wounds, prevent infection. But she had nothing. No antiseptic, no bandages, no clean water. The river water that had attacked her was now the only water available, and drinking it felt like drinking poison. She tore strips from the remaining fabric of her shirt, pressing them against the worst of the wounds. The material stuck to the skin, pulling when she moved. She winced, biting her lip to keep from crying. Crying meant weakness. Weakness meant death. She had read the survival manuals. She knew the rules. But manuals don't prepare you for the reality of being naked in everything but torn cloth, bleeding, lost, and completely alone. She tried to stand. Her legs trembled. Her head swam. The heat was oppressive, but her body was shivering. A bad sign. Hypothermia wasn't the threat here. Infection was. Sepsis. Fever. The jungle didn't kill you with cold. Killed you with decay. She began to walk. Not randomly. She followed the river. Water meant direction. Water meant civilization, eventually. If she could find a downstream village, a research outpost, a boat, anything. She kept the river to her left, moving slowly, deliberately, scanning for landmarks, for trails, for signs of human presence. Every step was agony. Her wounds burned. Her muscles screamed. Her throat was parched. She found a few broad leaves, chewed them for moisture, spat out the bitterness. It wasn't enough. By late afternoon, the sun was a heavy, orange disk sinking behind the canopy. The light turned the jungle into a cathedral of shadows. The temperature dropped slightly, but the humidity remained, clinging to her skin like a second layer. She found a hollow beneath the roots of a massive ceiba tree, collapsed into it, and tried to sleep. Sleep was impossible. Every rustle sounded like a predator. Every insect buzz sounded like a threat. Her mind raced. Mateo will be looking. He'll report me missing. They'll send a team. I just need to stay alive until then. But dawn brought no rescue. It brought fever. It started as a dull ache behind her eyes, then a wave of heat that washed over her body, making her sweat despite the cool morning air. She pressed her hand to her forehead, burning. Her vision blurred at the edges. Her mouth was dry, cracked. She licked her lips and tasted salt and copper. The wounds were worse. The redness had spread. Yellowish fluid seeped from several bites. The skin around them was tight, swollen, hot to the touch. She tried to wash them with rainwater collected in a broad leaf, but the liquid stung like fire. She hissed, pulling back, tears mixing with the sweat on her face. She didn't know it yet, but the river had not just bitten her. It had infected her. The Amazon is not just water. It is a biological soup. Bacteria, parasites, fungi, viruses, all thriving in the warm, nutrient-rich currents. The bites had broken her skin. The water had entered her bloodstream. What started as superficial wounds was now becoming systemic. Her immune system, weakened by exhaustion, dehydration, and stress, was losing the battle. By midday, she could barely stand. Her legs felt like lead. Her head throbbed with a rhythm that matched her heartbeat. She stumbled, fell to her knees, crawled a few feet, stopped. She tried to drink from a small puddle, but her hands shook so badly she spilled half of it. The rest tasted of mud and decay. She gagged, but forced it down. Survival was not about comfort. It was about persistence. She found a piece of rotting log, hollowed out by insects, and used it to collect more rainwater as dark clouds gathered overhead. The storm came suddenly. Rain fell in heavy sheets, washing over her, cooling her skin, but also soaking her torn clothes, making her heavier, colder, more miserable. She huddled under a large palm frond, shivering, teeth chattering, eyes half closed. The fever was rising. She began to hallucinate, not vivid visions, just whispers, shadows, the sound of her mother's voice calling her name, the rustle of pages in her university library, the glow of her laptop screen. She shook her head, trying to clear it. Focus. River. Downstream. Keep moving. But her body was betraying her. The rash had spread. It wasn't just around the bites anymore. It covered her arms, her neck, her chest. Red, raised, itchy, burning. She scratched until her skin bled, then stopped, horrified by what she was doing. Infection, scarring, death. She forced her hands to her sides, clenched them into fists, breathed through her nose, tried to ground herself in reality. My name is Chloe Vance. I am 21 years old. I am in the Peruvian Amazon. I fell into the river. I lost my gear. I am sick. I need to survive. She repeated it like a mantra, over and over, until the words lost meaning, until the jungle swallowed them. Day 4, or maybe 5. Time had become fluid. The fever had peaked, then broken, leaving her weak, trembling, hollow. She had survived the worst of the initial infection, but the damage was done. Her body was depleted. Her muscles were wasting. Her skin was pale, clammy, covered in a map of red welts and scabs. She had lost weight. Her collarbones protruded. Her cheeks were sunken. She had found a small stream branching off from the main river. The water was clearer, cooler. She drank carefully, boiling it first by placing a hollowed gourd near a small fire she managed to start with dry bark and friction. The fire was tiny, pathetic, but it gave her warmth. It gave her hope. It gave her something to focus on. She began to forage. She knew the basics. Fruits with smooth skin. Avoid milky sap. Look for animal tracks. Follow them to water. She found a few wild bananas, unripe but edible. She found a cluster of palm hearts, bitter but filling. She ate slowly, chewing thoroughly, conserving energy. Every calorie mattered. Every step cost her. But the jungle was not passive. It was actively hostile. On the 6th day, she heard it. A low, guttural growl. Not a monkey. Not a bird. Something larger. She froze, crouching behind a fallen log, heart hammering. The sound came again, closer. She peeked over the wood. 50 feet away, half hidden in the undergrowth, was a jaguar. It was lean, muscular, its coat a mosaic of black rosettes on gold. It stared at her with eyes that held no malice, only calculation. It knew she was weak. It knew she was prey. Chloe didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't blink. The jaguar watched her for a long minute. Then it turned, melting into the shadows, silent as smoke. She exhaled. Her hands were shaking. Her legs gave out. She slid down the log, sitting on the damp earth, staring at the place where the cat had been. Could have taken me. Didn't. Why? Because she wasn't worth the risk. Because she was already dying. Because the jungle prefers to kill slowly. That night, the fever returned. Worse than before. She burned, then froze, then burned again. She dreamed of hospitals, of white walls, of nurses adjusting IVs, of her parents crying, of Mateo's disappointed face. She woke screaming, thrashing, tangled in vines she didn't remember climbing. She was lying on her back, staring at the canopy, stars visible through gaps in the leaves. Beautiful, distant, unreachable. She tried to stand. Her legs buckled. She crawled to the stream, drank, splashed water on her face, on her wounds. The rash had turned purple in places. Some scabs were cracking open, oozing clear fluid. She knew intellectually that she was developing cellulitis, possibly septicemia. Her body was fighting a war it was losing. She found a piece of charcoal from a dead fire, ground it into powder, mixed it with rainwater, and applied it to the worst wounds. It stung, but it dried quickly. It was something, anything. She began to talk to herself. Not mantras, conversations.
Mom, I'm sorry.
I should have listened. I should have stayed on the trail. I thought I was smarter than the jungle. I thought I could outthink it. But it doesn't think. It just is. And I'm losing. Dad. Remember when I was 8 and I fell out of the oak tree? You said falling is easy. Getting up is hard. I'm trying to get up, Dad. But the ground keeps pulling me down. Mateo, if you're looking, I'm sorry. I broke the rules. I know you warned me. I know I was arrogant. I just wanted to prove I could do it. I wanted to be someone. Now I just want to be alive. She wept, quietly, without sound. Tears mixing with sweat, with dirt, with river water still trapped in her hair. The jungle listened. It always listens. Day 8 or 9. The sky was gray. The air was heavy. The river was a constant murmur in the distance. Chloe could no longer walk. She crawled. Her arms dragged her body forward. Her legs followed, useless, numb. Her wounds were weeping, The rash had spread to her face. Her lips were cracked, bleeding. Her eyes were sunken, glassy. She was a skeleton wrapped in torn cloth and infected skin. She had stopped counting days. Time was measured in breaths, in heartbeats, in the slow, inevitable decline of her body. She found a cave, small, shallow, but dry. She dragged herself inside, collapsed onto the stone floor, and stared at the entrance. The jungle framed it like a painting, green, alive, indifferent. She knew she wasn't going to make it, not because she gave up, but because her body had given up. Her organs were failing. Her blood was poisoned. Her mind was fraying. She was a biological system shutting down one component at a time. She tried to write in her journal. The pages were damp, the ink bleeding. She wrote with a shaking hand, letters sloppy, words fragmented. Day don't know, fever high, can't stand, rash everywhere. River took everything. Mateo, sorry. Mom, Dad, I tried. The jungle doesn't care. It just is. I'm so tired. I just want to sleep. If someone finds this, tell them I wasn't stupid. I was just human, and humans break. She closed the journal, tucked it under a rock, hid it, a message in a bottle, a testament, a warning. She lay back, closed her eyes, listened to the jungle, the insects, the birds, the distant river, the wind in the leaves. It was beautiful, terrifying, eternal. She thought about her life, not the highlights, the quiet moments, reading in bed, laughing with friends, the smell of coffee, the sound of rain on windows, the feeling of sun on her face. Simple things, precious things, things she had taken for granted, things she would never feel again. She whispered, barely audible, I'm sorry, not to the jungle, not to her parents, not to Mateo, to herself, for believing she could conquer nature, for believing she was special, for believing she could walk into the wild and walk out unchanged. The fever rose one last time, a wave of heat, a wave of cold, a wave of nothing. Her breathing slowed, her heart stuttered, her eyes closed, and the jungle kept breathing. Chloe Vance's body was found 11 days later by a team of local researchers following Mateo's coordinates. The journal was recovered. The satellite phone was never found. The river kept its secrets. Her story was not sensationalized. It was studied, taught, used as a case study in environmental ethics, survival psychology, and the dangers of underestimating nature. Her parents founded a scholarship for responsible field research. Mateo retired, citing the weight of a student's final days. The jungle continued, unchanged, unbothered, eternal, but her journal remains, hidden in a university archive, a reminder, a warning, a testament to a young woman who wanted to prove herself, who walked into the green dark, and who learned, too late, that nature does not negotiate. It only endures. If the story moved you, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Share Chloe's warning with others. Remember, the wild does not care about your ambition. It only respects your preparation. Stay safe, respect the boundaries, and never mistake curiosity for invincibility. Until next time.